Stop. Just stop. Just breathe for a moment. We spend so much of our lives, don't we, looking at these little numbers, checking the time, worrying about a past we can't change, or planning for a future we can't control, that so much of the present seems to just disappear right before our very eyes. If we're always running from yesterday and sprinting towards tomorrow, is today always on the run? Stop, breathe, be here now. But stopping is not as easy as it sounds. I was reading recently that app stores such as the App Store or Google Play have reported that these programs that we're using, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Hangouts, have been downloaded something like 62 million times since this whole lockdown began. That every single social media platform out there, WhatsApp, Facebook, Skype, have reported a real spike, both in old users coming back and new users setting up new accounts. There was even a report I was reading on the BBC News website that COVID-19 might actually speed up the use of robots in the workplace. What we were given was an opportunity to stop, an invitation to reflect. But what we saw was a space to fill with new ways to be busy. A generation ago, a Christian poet called T.S. Eliot wrote a whole bunch of poems called The Rock. And as part of that collection, he wrote these words: the endless cycle of ideas and action, endless invention, endless experiment, brings knowledge of motion, but not stillness, knowledge of speech, but not silence, knowledge of words, but ignorance of the word. Where is the life we have lost in living? Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information? This season that we're in, this age of information overload, brings a poverty of attention, a lack of an ability to be here now. We're in a season at the moment where we're looking at the 10 commandments of life online. And what's interesting to me is that in the 10 commandments, the 10 things, the 10 words that God gives the Israelites just released out of slavery in Egypt into this new covenant, this new relationship, right there at the top is this one: remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. The word holy, the concept of holiness, means something that's different, something that's distinct, something that's separate or other than. And God says to this people who'd been slaves in Egypt, who'd worked every single day of their lives, carrying bricks without straw, building, working, slaving, he says to them, remember the Sabbath and keep it different, keep it special. And this was entirely unique, not just to them, but in the ancient world. In the ancient world, life was work. If you didn't work, you didn't earn. If you didn't earn, you didn't eat. And God says, listen, I want you to trust me for that source of provision in your life. I want you to remember that life is more than work, that your worth is more to me than your productivity, more than your effectiveness, more than your efficiency. And as part of that relationship was worship. And in the heart of the Old Testament, we have this book dedicated to worship, the book of Psalms, Israel's guide to worship, Israel's songbook. And one of the most famous statements in the whole of that book is this invitation: be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in all the earth. Be still and know that I am God. There's an artist, I came across his story recently. I think I'm pronouncing this right, Marina Abramovic. One of the things that she did was to put on a piece of 150 hours. All she did in an empty theatre was to sit on a wooden chair and to look into the eyes of her audience. And over the course of that time, some 1,500 people came to witness this art. They paid for it, they queued for it, they waited for it, they talked about it. Now, you can have debates over whether that really is art or not, but what it demonstrates is that stillness, presence, is beautiful. People will pay for it. People will queue for it, for someone to be present. And that's what God invites us into here. Be still and know that I am present. And more than just being there, I am God. Be still and know. Often knowledge is what we chase. We worry that if we don't know everything, we'll miss what's most important. I remember reading a while ago about Napoleon. Napoleon had this practice of delaying his mail deliberately. He would ask his workers, his servants, don't bring me my mail until 3 weeks after it was sent. And then he'd often read through that mail with a huge amount of joy and pleasure in all those things which were urgent for him to know, which found their own solution within that 3-week period. He reminded himself that he was not as important, not as powerful, not as needed as other people wanted him to know. And as often that big part of us, that ego in us, wants us to know. We can afford to remember a digital Sabbath, to unplug, to pause, to mute, to power down in order that we can know that he is God, the God who is exalted above the nations, the God who is exalted in all the earth. Be still, God says, and know that I am. Those words first given to Moses as he stood before a burning bush, as the flames darted around, as his shadow danced behind him, and he peered into the mystery of a bushfire that continued, that blazed, and yet the bush itself wasn't consumed, and this voice that came out of it. And Moses says to him, well, who are you? He wants to know who this God is that is speaking to him in this unique way and giving him the mission of his life. And the voice comes back, I am that I am. Not I was, not the past, Not I will be, not the future, although both of those things are true, but the God who is here and now. I am pure existence. Do you know the God who is here and now? I am the Lord your God. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am the bread of life. I am the good shepherd. I am the way, the truth, the life. I am the door. I am. I am coming soon. And so often in our lives, that voice, that call, that invitation gets drowned out in all the other noise, all the other sources of input and information. Is there space in your daily life for a digital detox, just to unplug from it all and to be still? A few years ago, researchers and psychologists began to study what was called the CNN effect. CNN, if you don't know, is an American news network, and it was one of the first 24-hour news networks in the world. And they said what was interesting was that once news became a 24-hour thing, that leaders around the world and politicians needed to know everything as quickly as possible in real time, so-called. And what that led to was a style of leadership that was constantly reactive to the news, constantly responding to the headlines. And one of the things that's come out of the CNN effect is that people's responses, people's opinions have now become headlines. So and said this about so and so, or so and so thinks that about so and so. Years ago, this wasn't news, people's opinion or people's responses. But now, people's reaction to news becomes news. And so people's reaction to other people's reaction becomes news. And we fill this space with noise, with opinions, with words. And so often that CNN effect isn't just true of international leaders or national politicians. It's true of you and I too, that our lives become so reactive. There is a problem, there is a crisis, there is a challenge, there is a need, and life becomes about that endless cycle of idea and action, of problem response. Be still, God says. Because in the stillness, there is a deeper place where my actions aren't always reacting to something, but come out of that knowledge that there is a God and it is not me. There is one who is the source of my life and the author of my salvation. Snooze the emails, mute the notifications, unplug from all the myriad groups that you're part of. I'm not saying it's all bad, I'm saying it's too much. Sometimes we need to remember a digital Sabbath and to be still to know that He is God. And so tonight, I just want to invite you to breathe, to be still right where you are right now. And in this stillness, in this quiet, to come again back to that core knowledge. He is God. Let's just be still for a moment.